Hello, everyone. Hope you had a great morning and also having a great afternoon. Welcome to today's Career Cafe session. I'm Kanika from the Ingenious Faces team, and we also have Pragya from the IF team for today's session. Let's just get right into it. I'm very happy to welcome Akriti Grover as our guest speaker today. She's a designer and also an entrepreneur from building the foundation and launching two very successful brand labels, Sukriti Akriti and Flirtatious, to creating a very strong brand presence in the fashion industry. She has definitely climbed this ladder of success. She will be sharing her insights into the growing business and will also share a brief about her journey to becoming a successful entrepreneur. Uh, very warm welcome, Akriti. Thank you for joining us today. Could I request you just to start your video as well? Um,
Hi Kanika,
hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you
We're
so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
okay, superb, great. Over to you. You can definitely start, and we can go with it.
Okay, hi guys, for everybody who's here. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Akshati, and by profession, I'm a fashion designer. Started my journey almost 7.5 years ago, and it just started from a very spontaneous idea of finding that little dearth in the market. So I started as a swimwear brand 7.5 years ago in 2013 with the mind frame of understanding that how swimwear wasn't very easily available in our market, but there was a huge market for it. And the point of starting a brand, the point of getting to a brand is finding your USP, finding a product you believe in, and then doing everything you can to push it forward, right? So basically I realized that obviously you would get swimwear like at an H&M, at a Forever, like which you would buy once, throw it, but it doesn't like really fit your body like a second skin. Or then there was something that was extremely expensive, which would be like a high-end designer for 12,000, 15,000. Now obviously like at that point we were all college going students who had 15,000 to spend on a swimsuit, yet you wanted to look the best version of yourself on your holiday, right? So basically I decided to make a good swimsuit at a reasonable price that everybody could afford. Secondly, the USP that I looked at in at that point was there was nobody doing customized swimwear. And we as Indians don't have an Indian size chart, right? We follow a European size chart, we follow an American size chart, but we are not a European body, we are not an American body. So even if tomorrow you went to go out and buy a swimsuit from any brand, you would be compromising somewhere or the other sometimes. Like you could be a small on the bottom and a medium on top, or vice versa, right? So you had to decide what part of your body were you more comfortable concealing. So eventually we decided to make a swimsuit that would fit you like a second glove. Something that's customized to your body to fit you like perfectly. Like so you feel confident, you feel great. So that's how the first brand came about into place. And trust me, like it wasn't like I planned for years. It wasn't like, oh my god, like this is what it is. It was a spontaneous idea, buy a little dirt in the market, because I personally went to look for a swimsuit for myself, and I realized that I'm not getting what I want. Like, I'm not happy with it. So then I believed in my product, and now it's been 7.5 years, and now there's so much in the market. Like there is so many options available. But I'm just happy, like I was one of the first ones to give you a customized swimsuit just at a click away. So that's where that started from. And I believe it or not, I have been a person who has been jack of all trades, master of none. If you ask me what I studied, what I did, I from school I went to do a filmmaking course, came back, went to Delhi University, left that in a year, did sound engineering for 2 years. Then while doing sound engineering, did fashion photography on the side, came back home, worked in events for 6 months. Then 6 months I was totally free, trying to figure out what I want to do in my life next. And then yeah, like all I did was thought of an idea today, and I knew I wanted to do this and found my passion in it and got up and just started. And I was just like, like obviously when you start a brand, you have to think of what is not available, what you're not doing. And that's with any field. It's not just with fashion. Tomorrow, if you start your own business, you have to see what is your USP, like compared to your competitors. What is it that you are giving? What is your niche of the market? So try to, like, whenever you want to start something, try to think of those things. Don't think of the bigger picture, like is it going to go anywhere? Because a lot of things you'll learn when you start. But if you start really questioning all this at a very, very early stage, at some point you'll get demotivated. You'll be like, oh my God, like, oh, the finances are looking too big. Oh, maybe it doesn't do well. Or maybe this may not happen. If you believe in it, just leap into it. And after that, slowly you learn. Like, it's been 7 years. The way, with the mind frame I started my brand to where I am today, I learned at every step. I made mistakes. I learned from those mistakes. I improved from those mistakes. So obviously, if you never try, you'll never know the level of mistakes you can make. You'll never know the level of improvisation you can reach. You'll never know what is till where you can go. And obviously, the constant need to create, the constant need to make it look new, to making something that you like personally, to making something that may be good for from a commercial perspective. So you have to meet hand in hand with everything. So basically, after doing my starting this brand for a year, I was like, okay, now it's time to get into some theory bit of it. Like, I started a brand on the top of my head because this is what I wanted to do. And then I went to Milan for a master's in fashion design for a year, just to polish up my basic knowledge and kind of clean it up, because I had given it a shot for a year. I knew I wanted to stick to it, and I was happy with what I was doing. I was feeling content. I was like, I enjoyed this process of imagining something and it being created and right in front of you. So that entire experience was so overwhelming. Then I went, did my master's in fashion design, came back. My sister and me started a Indian wear brand together. Yet again, like in that time, like in the market, nobody would wear cotton to a formal function. Like you would want to wear a silk, a banarsi, like those big cans, right? But to be very honest, if you're attending a wedding and attending 3 days, 4 days of functions non-stop, it's not the easiest task. You can't just keep getting into that outfit and feeling like you're lugging yourself throughout, so it becomes very intense. And both of us are big wedding people. Like, we love the wedding season. So obviously, again, it's something that came from personal experience. We realized that we felt really worn down in our outfits. And it was just like, nobody does cotton in a dressy way. Like, so the USP of the brand, the thought behind the brand was to make cotton extremely dressy, was to make sure that something that's such a beautiful fabric, something that just grows soft with age, and something that's going to last you a lifetime. Like, it's not something too heavy, it's not something too light. You have so much scope to play with your jewelry, but there's like nice little embroidery to make it look heavy enough to attend a wedding and stuff. So basically, the USP of the brand was to make cotton dressy, to make it sustainable. We use organic cotton, which we make ourselves, which is made out of banana, soya milk. So it's obviously like there's a lot of thought, lot of art, and lot of like time that goes into it. So we decided to make cotton, make it dressy, so that everybody could dance all night and not worry about like, oh my God, I can't wait to change into my PJs. And then also not to make it too heavy, so it doesn't feel like, oh, like I can't wear this for this because it's too heavy, I can't wear it again. So it's basically to use it for multiple functions. And then as the journey went across, we just became a brand. Like, if you ask me, one of my fondest memory is to see a bride wearing a Sukriti Akriti for her mehendi. Like, so it was like, wow, like it has made it from a thought process. It has reached the point you wanted it to reach. Now, brides are so finicky about what they pick up for their weddings, for their functions. They're so picky because they want to look the best. You want to look extremely luxe at the same time. But the fact that people actually catered and went into buying cotton and wearing it for their own functions, for wearing it for her own mehendi. So it was a very overwhelming experience. It was great to see that people understood the kind of mind frame we were trying to sell. And it's not been easy. Like, obviously there have been days where with either of the brands, like, this is just a business perspective, there are days that you feel like, oh my god, this is not what I had in mind. Oh my god, like, you may feel very discouraged, but then you have to wake up and tell yourself, remind yourself why you started. You have to tell yourself where you want to be. And the journey to reach wherever you want to be is just consistency, is just believing in yourself and just going. And another thing is that the competition in the market, somehow, like, for us in our Sukriti Akriti as a brand, we have been very majorly imitated in the market. You find our copies very easy. Now that was obviously something that's not very pushy for a brand. It doesn't make you feel really nice, because obviously you put in your thought process, you put in your hard work to create something, and all somebody has to do is pick up a piece from you and make multiple of it, and but if you let those things get to you, you'll never get anywhere. So the point of doing this, the point of understanding, is that you have to change your perspective to things sometimes. So our major perspective was that I felt flattered. I felt like, oh wow, like, I'm glad we made it somewhere, that somebody really wanted to imitate your design and sell it in the market. Like, it was, for people, it was like, oh my god, like, your designs are getting copied. I used to get like a picture from a single friend every single day. Like, at least I would get one picture of this one selling your copy or that one selling your copy. And I'd be like, to be honest, I don't care, because eventually you can copy what I make, but you can't imitate my mind, right? And I took it as a challenge. Like, I feel like it worked out really well. And also because I changed my outlook to it eventually, because I was like, okay, cool, this is copied, this is there, never mind. My next collection is going to be even better than this, like, even further than this. So I think it really helped me push myself. It really helped me get out there. And I like a healthy competition, to be honest. Like, it keeps me motivated. Like, when there are other people doing, then I know I have to push myself to do the same thing. And to be honest, I like a healthy competition. Like, I'm also somebody who is a horse in life. I wear blinders on either sides, and I just run my own race. I don't look left, I don't look right. And to be very honest, I do not care what other people are doing. I do what I believe in, I do what I want to do, and I do it the way I want to do it. Yes, obviously, inputs are something that we really look forward to, whether it's positive or negative. That's what keeps you growing. But I am not muscled by somebody who is so panicky in the thing, oh my god, this one is doing this and I also must get into this, or this one's doing this. I'm like, no, like, I want to do this, but I have to have a reasoning of why I want to do this for myself. And that's how I work. And I think that's what's kept me going for so long, because I feel like clothes are something that get copied so easy, and if tomorrow you are somebody who can produce, anybody will produce, like, and why not? At the end of the day, if you can do it, it's a business. You have to see what's doing well in the market, and if it's imitating somebody for somebody else's business, they're also doing their business. So I can't have hard feelings, because there's nothing personal or emotional about it. It's just business. And who doesn't want a successful business? Who doesn't want a well reputed business? Who doesn't want to make money? So eventually, obviously, things happen. You learn them with time. It's not easy, it's not simple, but you just have to keep going. Your key is to just keep going and keep molding yourself as you face different things. So it's never going to be, nobody can give you a handbook and say, this is how it is, follow page by page. Every journey is different, every experience is different, and every learning is different. All I would say is that whenever you're running any kind of business or you want to do anything of your own, don't ever let it become bigger than your head. Don't let it control you. Make sure you have a grip on yourself. Make sure you know your worth. Make sure you know your product. Make sure you know your bit. Make sure you know your direction. That's it. Things will happen. It's life. It has to happen. It will come. Today, like, maybe you have to give a client's piece tomorrow. Your tailor will not come. Your master may want to take a holiday. Like, these are very basic running issues, and your client could be like shouting their roof off at you because they need the piece tomorrow. But how do you come up with those things? How do you work with those activities? Like, obviously, sometimes you have to refund the client, sometimes you have to make sure you sit the whole night and get it done if you have to. So you have to obviously weigh your things, but you have to never let them weigh you down, you know. So just keep going, like believe in what you do, and yeah, like it just keeps going. And it's not a journey that ever ends. Like creating is such a beautiful aspect, and learning to see things beauty in your ordinary day is what makes you and your thought process absolutely focused. So look at things, do referencing, look at things, see what people are doing to understand the market, and see what is missing, to see how you can mold it to yourself, but not how you would like just make the same thing. You take inspiration for sure, everyone does. There is so much content there. You think of a theme, you think of a process, you think about an emotion, you think how it may make you feel, how you want to present it to somebody. So I feel like there is just so much out there available for you to experience, for you to get into. So don't get carried away by making exactly or by doing exactly what somebody is doing. Take inspiration, but what is you in it? You know, like mold it to yourself. See what is your calling, how can you shape it, that tomorrow somebody asks you about your brand, you're just not like, oh, I'm just another Indian wear brand, oh, I'm just another swimwear brand. If you ask me, like today, if you ask me about my brand, I can tell you what my vision for my brand was. I can tell you where I wanted my brand to be. I can tell you what, where I wanted people to understand my brand the way I wanted them to understand. So it's a language. You have to speak the constant language, and that language consistency can only happen if it's coming from you. Your personality reflects in your work, and only if your personality reflects in your work will it remain consistent. Otherwise, it's just going to be today your work will look like somebody else's, tomorrow your work will look like somebody else's, then it will look like somebody else's, because you're just taking information and reproducing it. You're not thinking. So keep thinking, keep pushing yourself, keep looking at all the creative ways to do things. There's just so much out there, and just don't let things weigh you down ever. Like do what you believe in, and nothing for nobody else. Like just because on somebody else's social media it looks like, oh my god, they have it all and it looks all like so big and fancy on this. Nobody, like everybody has their own bits of pros and cons. Nobody has it perfect, and being perfect is being imperfect. Like loving those parts, and like, okay, like this is a struggle, this is a challenge today, like okay, this didn't work out, now how do I make this work out tomorrow, you know. So keep that enthu going, keep pushing yourself. And I feel that's very important to be able to run a business, to have a grounding. Never forget why you started, never forget where you started from, and never forget where you come from. Like, you know, like it's just that's what makes your holistic experience and make you last in it, you know. So yeah, that's my take on running a business.
Thank you so much, Akriti, for sharing. I think it's definitely a great learning point for people who want to start their own brands. They do have an idea, but it's that leap of faith that you have to take.
Yeah, you have to. If you believe in it, just go for it. Everything else gets figured out. There's nothing you can make a to-do list and figure it out, because you do not know the reality of it. You do not know the practicality of it. You are learning it on paper. You are not learning it in practicality. Even if you experience it in somebody else's company as an experience, but you want to start on your own journey is going to have its own little hurdles. So if you believe in your product, you know you really want to do this, just close your eyes, take a leap of faith, start it, and I promise everything else figures out. You may compromise somewhere today, but tomorrow you'll be able to do it because you want to make that bit happen. So you will make that bit happen. So just take a leap of faith. Like literally, I would say, like, close your eyes and dive into it, and rest everything would just fall into place for you.
Great. So I have like a very small question. Like I have a few questions actually after uh, the the insights that you've given us. So
Yeah,
you mentioned that you founded Flirtatious before Sukriti and Akriti.
correct.
What actually inspired you to make that transition from a swimwear brand to an Indian wear brand? I mean, what was the
So
thought?
basically, I'm somebody who needs stimulation of new things. I am that person. Individually, I'm a person like, if today I'm doing something, I always want to do something more, something different, something new, like whatever I'm creating now is for my now. And then suddenly tomorrow I'll be like, okay, I want something more, like I want something more. That's me as a person. And also, I'm a person with multiple personalities. Okay, I am not one person, I am not one thought. Like, I know a lot of people who are one thought, they're one way, and they like it that ways. For sure, if that's who you are, you do you. But I'm a person who is multiple personalities, and I love the fact that I run two brands which are so different, because they actually stimulate to absolutely different aspects of me. I get to play with absolutely two different languages. One is so poppy, color in your face. The other one's this entire boho, like absolutely soft, like a very hippie vibe. So the thing is that I'm able to play with such diversity in the two brands that I feel like it keeps me going. Like, I'm never idle. Like, I'm thinking for one brand, I'm in one mind frame. I get done with it. Then I'm a whole new perspective on another brand, and then I keep going into it. So my one thing doesn't become monotonous for me. It's not like, oh, I'm doing the same thing on repetition. And sometimes as a person, you can have multiple ideas, but you can't put all multiple ideas in one collection. So for me, I use one idea of mine here, one idea of mine there. So it's very stimulating to have two brands. And I'm glad that I have that. Like I'm very grateful for it, because it just keeps me going, like both of it. And it's hilarious, because if I ever discuss it with somebody, both the brands are poles apart. But if you see, like even in the Indian wear brand, we do a lot of like bikini tops with lehenga skirts, so in some places I overlap the brand, like wherever I can, like I bring a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Now also with destination weddings, pool parties has become such a major thing. Mehendi by the pool has become such a major thing. So to have like a swimwear blouse with your Indian wear skirt or a sharara is become a trend on its own. So somehow both the brands are fit into a different category altogether. So it's a mix of the two. So it was a very spontaneous transition. I'm a person, if I want to do something, I just get up and do it. Like I'll just like rest everything I'll figure out. I plan it in the time and I'll be like, rest everything will get figured out. But just the initial, obviously everybody wants figured, right? You need to have a vision. I need to understand what I'm believing in. I need to understand if I'm doing. So I do that bit of planning for sure. Like to know what my brand has to speak. Because I wouldn't just get up, okay, I want to make one t-shirt and tomorrow get up and make one t-shirt. I will obviously sit down and see what is the language of my brand. Where am I headed with that? What is the feeling I attach to it? So I put a lot of personal experiences, a lot of travel. Like I love traveling as a person. So I try to put a lot of different emotions of different things that I feel into things I do, you know.
I think the same, like you mentioned, you love travel. I think that coincides with IF as well, because we all love to travel. And so, yeah, definitely. Thanks for us answering that question. So, when you started Flirtatious, I'm sure that you started that with a headset of a thought that you had during that time, when 7 years back. So has that idea kind of evolved during the time? Has your brand, the message of the brand or the style of the brand changed? And if yes, how has it changed?
So basically, our initial thought is remain the same, but yes, obviously we've grown, we've learned, we made mistakes, we learned, we've improved. Like a product, when you start, obviously with time you keep improving it. There are new things that come to you, there are new things you discover, new techniques you discover. So obviously your product evolves with time. And that's with any journey, right? Any kind of business you would do, your product will always evolve with time and grow with time.
Yes.
But we have stuck to a very basic brand ideology, which we still do. So that would be like, a lot of customers come to me and say, oh, what would you suggest for my body type? As a brand, if you ever go through any of our posts or our language, anything, nothing ever talks anything about body type at all. We don't believe in it. Like, it so many people be like, oh, but I'm like this, like, suggest what you think would look good. I say, see, but if I suggest, like, very simple logic behind it is, if I suggest something to you that I say, okay, this will look good for you, good on you, but you don't feel happy wearing it, no matter what you do, it's not going to look good on you. It's as simple. And you have a limited time frame in life. Enjoy wearing whatever you want to wear. If it makes you feel happy, just wear it. Like, who cares about a body type? Eventually you have to feel comfortable in your skin. You can't take somebody else's idea of your body and just paint it on yourself, you know. So eventually, like, that's still one thing I still tell anybody who asks me, what would you suggest for my body, what would you suggest for my body, I would say, go in something you would feel happy. Buy something, you invest something you would utilize because you're feeling happy wearing it, you know. And automatically there's a different glow on your face when you wear something you enjoy wearing. So that's something we really stick with. So we don't give any level of like body type selling at all. And one of my biggest happiness is when, like, I still remember starting the brand. And to be very this is very interesting part of the business of running a swimwear brand. So when I started my brand, like, obviously because there weren't options, right? Like, nobody was really running a swimwear brand at that point. There were a few options in the market, but they were either on a higher scale or they were like a mass like a streetwear brand, right? So when I would do exhibitions, I would literally have people come and giggle at bikini tops lying on the table. Like, I've literally seen this as my face. Like, I'm standing there and I'm selling this, like, this table full of bikini tops and this entire rack of swimsuit, and people come and giggle and like laugh at each other and go like, oh, like, you know, like, and kind of whisper in each other's ear about it and stuff. Now, like, now today, if I stand with a table, the growth in the market, the openness in the market has such a great experience that people come and be like, oh, this bikini looks cool, like, I would like to try it. Like, they're just so openly talking about it, they're so accepting towards it. I've had customers, like, there was this middle-aged lady who'd come to me once, and she was really conscious of her body, of, like, you know, and she wanted something with cycling shorts and to cover her arms and this and that. 3 years later, I had this another lady, proportionately about the same body type, same size, walk in and pick up the skimpiest monokini possible. And it made me so happy because I was just like, I love her confidence. I love that she feels so comfortable in her skin that she is wearing what she wants to wear, you know. So I feel like those little spots of movements and growth in general outlook of people being accepting to anybody wearing what they want to wear, it's been a really, really, really grateful experience. Like, it makes me happy. It's what keeps me going. Like, you know, I was just like, I feel nice when somebody looks at a product, smiles at it and wears it. Like, it gives them their joy. So obviously these are things I have struggled with time, obviously, to sell it to the market, to make them understand it, that there's nothing, you don't need to shy away from it. Like, if you want to wear it, you wear it. It's just another piece of clothing. Like, you know, you can wear it on the beach, you wear it to a pool, you wear it to a pool party, use the crop tops on a night out with a pair of pants, with skirts, with shorts, wear it however you want to wear it. But be confident with yourself. Like, you know, don't not wear it because, oh, society doesn't allow me to wear it, you know. So obviously that's been a very, very long journey, and I'm very happy with today, like, how people look at it, they buy it, they feel confident no matter what body type. So for me, that brand ideology has always remained. Till date, I have never ever suggested anybody anything on a body type, ever.
So, like you mentioned that when you started the brand, the market at that time was not that mature in terms of your consumers were not that open to such things. Then that time, how did you kind of get into designing? What was the? Did you not feel scared to start a swimwear brand? Would be one question that I would want.
Yeah, like, obviously, like, whenever you start a business, like I said, like, you do have your fears, right? It may work, it may not work. Do I have the market, do I not have the market? But like I said, I believed in it. I felt there was that little gap missing. Like, I won't say our products are really cheap, I won't say our products are very expensive, they're in the mid range.
Okay.
But in that mid range, we give you, my point was to give you high quality fabric, high quality fit in an affordable price, so it doesn't make holes in your pocket at the end of the day. I am started with a brand with not much of a margin. It's not like my profits are 50%, my profits are 100%. I don't do mass production. I make per piece, per order. So obviously, because it's customized to your size, we give you an option to take your color. We even give you, like on a website, we give you options like, if you do not want the V cut, but you want this tiny little boy leg cut, you can do that even at a click on a website. So obviously, I'm giving you so much options. Secondly, at the end of the day, like it's a product which is very intimately worn. So hygiene is a major concern. So obviously, if I have like 10 pieces in stock and customers are coming and trying, I will not want another customer to pick that piece up ready. It's not nice, like, because everybody has their own bits of things. So we make, like, my biggest thing was, I started small. I was a one man army. So I was a person, I was everything for my brand. Like, I was a designer, I was a marketing person, I was a social media person, I was the person standing at stalls. I was a one person army. I didn't invest in a team, like you said, because obviously the market had still not grown, still not there yet. And I had very less profit margins. I made small things. I shot on my own. So I would do shoots myself. So I was literally trying to make it like a one man army brand, like, at the end of the day. So obviously I tried the market, I tried to see how it goes. Then as it kept growing, I also kept growing, designs kept growing. So it was just like providing something really young, cool, simple, like, and then obviously started working with prints, so started designing my prints, printing my prints. So it just kept growing with time, obviously. And it was a leap of faith I did take, but I believed in my product. I knew there will be a growth for it at some point, because that niche of the market was missing in our country. It's available in other countries. And at that point, like, also everybody would go for a holiday, would pick up one swimsuit there, right? Because you wouldn't get the same thing back in India. But today, for me, it has changed completely. Everybody who leaves from India takes one swimsuit from me and goes. So at least they have something that fits them comfortably. And when they reach there, if they like something, they pick up more, because obviously, because of social media, your pictures being posted everywhere, nobody wants to repeat their swimsuits more than twice. And so at least they'll take one because they're secure that this would fit them right, and then they pick up a piece from there. So to see that turnaround in the market was another very overwhelming experience for me while running this brand.
Great, great. How, so you said that when you got into designing or starting your own brand, you kind of did not have a formal training initially. So how did you get into designing? What made you think that you want to be a designer? Was it like a hobby you did as when you were younger, or how did you come across that would want to be a designer one day?
Okay, so firstly, though, I would recommend everybody find yourself a mother India. For me, I had my mother. My mother has been the support system of everything in and out. My mother's been in the garment line for almost 40 years. I did have a background in it, like an understanding from there. Like, I have grown up making her make beautiful outfits, and my mother used to do strictly exports, and she would just do like a few personal customers here. That's it. So she's been an exporter and she's been in the line for 40 years and one heck of a talented lady, and like to see her in this line. And she always told me, like, would you want to get into design? And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. So that's what I said. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. Like, I wanted to get into filmmaking, then doing sound engineering and filmmaking, then doing fashion photography, working in events. So I kind of tried all of them, and at the end of the day, to be very honest, none of the education went waste for me. None of it at all. Today, for a brand, I need to create content. I need to do photo shoots. I need to do video content. I never feel blank because I've studied them all, right? I've understood all of them. So I never feel blank at any point. Like, it's like if today I want to do a photo shoot, I have a vision. I can see it. I want to do a video. I know what kind of sound would work with it, what kind of things. So coincidentally, I was very fortunate that everything just kind of fell into place. Yes, I didn't go ahead and take a profession in it or kind of take that forward. But yes, it was all due to my mom, and she has been a major support system. She used to do very, very different garments. So when I came to her and I'm like, okay, like, cool, I think I want to get into swimwear. She's like, sure, go for it. I didn't have a single setup for it. Like obviously the kind of machines we use for this product, the kind of machines my mom was using was absolutely different. No master, no tailor is trained in making swimsuit because there's barely anybody doing it here, you know. So obviously with time, like I built that team, like we kind of, that's what I'm saying, we made mistake, we learned, we improved, we made mistake, we learned, we improved. So that's how it's a whole circle, and it just keeps going with no matter what you do. But at that point, if my mom had turned around and told me like, but how are you going to do this, we don't have a machine for it, my masters don't understand your things, my tailors can't make what you want them to make, how are we going to do this, like, you know. But she was just like, sure, let's give it a shot. So again, like it was setting up an entire new unit in her unit. But yes, I would have never been able to do it without her backing. So I would be like, my first recommendation would be like, find yourself a Mother India if you guys can. And their level of experience, nobody will love your work the way they love your work. Nobody will give you the kind of love, compassion, honesty, support that a mother would. You know, like for a mother to see her child grow, nothing is better than that, you know. So yeah, so she like, why not? We went step by step and kind of figured it all out with time.
That's so great. And like you mentioned, you kind of used all the skills that you kind of learned from wherever you were studying. It kind of all came together.
Yeah, all came. So
And you
coincidentally, they all came back. Like I actually understood the meaning of education never goes waste for the first time in my life, and I felt like a horrible child. I was like, wow, my parents made me like go for this course now for this course. Like I kept shifting, and my parents never said no to me. Like, you know, and I kept switching fields, and I used to feel so guilty because I was like, oh my god, like I didn't do this, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do this. But now everything just came about like in such a nice little ball together. So I was like, okay, none of it went waste. So it was just for me to pacify myself that none of it went waste.
that's superb. While initially also and now also, when you kind of you are kind of designing your piece or the collection that you are designing, if you're coming out with a whole collection, what is kind of your creative process of starting with that?
So firstly, you kind of read what trends are coming in the season, obviously. Whereas as of now, I think if you talk about this pandemic, it has done a great thing for the fashion industry, to be very honest. I think with the world becoming a smaller place, with us becoming even closer through social media, the world was running a different race, and fashion world was running at a rapid speed. Like it was crazy. Every 2 months a new collection, every 3 months a new thing, a new designers taking out a capsule collection in two months, then another lookalike is coming out in 2 months. So I felt like there was a lot of pressure in the fashion industry for people to create constantly. Eventually creation is art. It takes time, it has to evolve. That's how you will make a unique piece. Otherwise you're just replicating one another. You're just replicating a trend exactly how it is and making 10 options of it, you know. So somehow, like if you talk about Sukriti Akriti as a brand, we never made 4 collections in a year. We stuck to the old school of making 2 collections in a year, like fall, winter, spring, summer. We took our time to design, we took our time to do things because like I said, if you have to create something unique, a lot of thought process needs to go. You need to understand the trends that are coming. How do you mold it to yourself? How do you work with colors? How do you work with embroidery? How do you place the embroidery? How do you do the silhouettes? If all this is exactly how it's so easy to imitate, right? Because it's provided on a platter to you for you to replicate it. But when you have to think of that every little stitch that goes into your garment from your own head, then that is where it becomes different than the others, right? So obviously that's a process that takes time. It needs to have its own level of understanding, its own level of little world and space. Like it's not something you can rush into. So for Sukriti Akriti, when we designed, because my sister is from Bombay and I'm from Delhi, my sister works as a stylist there, and she is married in Bombay now, and I live in Delhi. So whenever she comes here, we conceptualize our collection. So we see the trends that are coming, we see the how we mold it to us, we do embroidery samples, we do color swatches, see what the colors are working. Excuse me. We open a shade card, choose the kind of colors that you would like for them to go through. So it's a whole process. So obviously one thought leads to another, Then we sketch them out in rough, play with the placements of embroideries, then give them in final production, make a dummy first with our muslin fabric. Then once we feel the silhouette needs to be changed, played around, tweak it around, pin it on the mannequin, then kind of come into a final product. So this is how each and every piece is created. So this is the process for every piece, and you have to make 20 pieces in every collection, is bound to take time, right? So then we used to take our time and make those collections. So this is how I would do it for Sukriti Akriti. Is like when she comes down here, we conceptualize, and then I keep taking care of the production because the production house is in Delhi. Video call her to show her to see what she thinks. So and coincidentally and luckily we come from the same school of thought. So our idea of things are in the same way. Like she may have a different approach, I may have a different approach, but baseline is the same. So it kind of blends in really well for us. And whereas you talk about flirtatious, we don't make seasons. We just make capsule collection, because imagine me calling a swimwear collection fall winter. You'd be like, wow, like am I going to go in the snow in this swimsuit? Like, you know. So yeah, so we just work on capsules. We like, and a lot of times things are originated from feelings, like what you're feeling in the moment. Like, am I feeling like, you know, like for Sukriti Akriti this time we are doing a full Fulkari collection, so we've taken inspiration from Punjab, like, you know. So kind of choose your theme, see where your inspiration comes from, and kind of work on it. Like for flirtatious, I work a lot with the colors. So I sit with my box of fabric, like, you know, I have small cuttings, I'd open them up and randomly from the thought of my head, like start placing things together when I want to color block them. Then I'd put the collections into like categories. Like I had a collection called Techno Tribal. So it was inspired from, you know, like going to like a tribal techno party. So it's very vibrant, like it's got orange and blue, and it's like, you know, how the lights reflect on you at a party. And then it was the techno bit was like the repetitive print. So, but it's a techno beat, and a techno beat is a repetitive beat at the end of the day. So that's why it was called techno tribal, because it was a tribal print, but it was repetitive like a techno beat, and the colors were from the light of it. So it's just a whole experience, a whole feeling. So like today I'll be like, okay, I want to create something in this, then kind of see how I feel about it, how I come to my process of the end product, and then I kind of form it together.
So like any other artist, you take inspiration from everywhere and anywhere you can get it.
Yeah, anywhere, like every like I, for me, I love traveling for this reason. The amount of things I pick up from there, the amount, like my mind is blown every time I go to a new country, because so much new culture, so much to learn, so much to experience. And when you stay in a confined place, there's only so much you can experience outside, and only if you kind of broaden yourself. Like there are times I've made collections I don't completely may not believe in, but I know my audience probably believes in it, you know. Like sometimes you have to make things for them as well, like, you know. So obviously it has to be a very good balance, because at the end of the day you're running a business. So you make few things for yourself, and you make few things because they need to sell. And every business needs that, because if you don't have the money in a commercial aspect that is commercially going to work, you'll never have it to invest in your own bit, your own creativity. And there are so many people who will understand your language, but you're selling to a mass, you want as much production, so you also have to make a commercial bit for people who want to go the conventional way.
Sure. Definitely.
So Akriti, like I
Yeah,
have a question.
sure.
So yeah, as you mentioned, like how in the pandemic the fashion industry has slowed down, right? So do you like foresee any changes in the way that you run your business, like, you know,
Yeah,
or
so basically, for Sukriti, Akriti, and Flirtatious both, we've been extremely conscious with the level of fabric we use. So for both, we use sustainable fabric. Now, sustainability is becoming a rage. Everybody is rethinking their brand to mold to a, like a more organic, sustainable bit of it, you know.
Mhm.
Now it's become a fad. But we have been dealing in organic cotton for almost 5 years in Sukriti Akriti. For Flirtatious, I have been buying swimwear fabric that is recycled swimwear fabric for years. So it's like we've made sure like it's something that lasts you for a while, like, you know, for your lifetime, like at the end of the day, or till you want to wear it.
Mhm.
So obviously, like now also when it comes, like for both the brands, we have an online presence. We made sure we had a website already in place before, because we had a lot of NRI customers. How do they buy your products, right? And eventually it has to be as convenient as buying online for them. And today being online is very, very, very important for your brand to have a social presence on Instagram, for your brand to have a user friendly website. It is the key. It's only our country that has been relatively slow in coming to an online approach, but worldwide it has been there for a very, very long time, you know. And obviously with it becoming big in India, you had to give cash on delivery a very major option, because in India people are not that comfortable putting in their credit card options online because of cyber hacking and feeling, and also, to be very honest, of the black money that people shop from. So obviously everybody doesn't want to put a credit card option. So yes, I think in the fashion industry a lot has changed for people in general. I feel like people are becoming more mindful. People are going to be a little bit more cautious of the way they produce their product. And obviously, like for me, I am going to reevaluate my packaging. I'm going to reevaluate, we come up with this concept that if you already have a box from any brand previously, and when we deliver a product to you, if you give us that box, like we give you a certain percentage of discount, so we can recycle it and relocate it. So it can just keep going on. Like, you don't have to keep buying new boxes. You don't have to keep buying new things. So if somebody like say like we give you like so and so percentage off, like if we are sending you a delivery and you give us an empty box back, or you give us an empty paper bag, you know, so that way it's remaining in the universe and circulating, but it's not getting thrown away into a bin by somebody, you know. So obviously, like, we're trying to think of more like creative ideas like that. All the boxes we have lying at home or we have here, and then we're trying to reuse them, remodule them. So obviously working on our packaging is one of the major things, because as a brand, as fabric, as thought, as consciousness, we are already been doing that. And another thing is like I said, like brands are producing every 2 months, brands are producing every 3 months. Like today you see something, and to be honest, for me, I couldn't shop anymore because everything looked the same. In 3 months, every brand was selling almost a lookalike of each other. Like I just couldn't shop anything, and nothing seemed new and exciting anymore. So I feel like that is again something that hampered the universe in such a major chunk, because you're just producing when there is no need of that level of consumption. It is not required. If you don't give it as an option, people will not buy it as an option, you know. So I feel like people will slow down. People will start reevaluating the way they run their brand. They will stop being just worrying about the money aspect of the brand, but also contribute to your social contribution welfare of the brand, you know. So for us, like, obviously we are pushing ourselves even more and more online. We are trying to obviously reevaluate our packaging, trying to do, you know, everything in this aspect very differently, and trying to see how we can contribute and kind of change that aspect. But whereas running the brand, producing, and design is concerned, we've already been very mindful of it. You know, we made sure that it was always in our aesthetics. You know, we made sure that we do that bit. And I'm glad that now it's becoming a trend. I'm very happy that now it's becoming a trend. So I feel when I say that the pandemic has done good to the fashion industry, it really has. It's taught people to breathe. It's taught people to take it easy, like, you know. So now, because nobody is producing at that level, nobody is running a race, everybody is struggling to already push what they have. Everybody you see is relatively at ease. Nobody is getting hyper anymore. Nobody's taking out 20 new pieces every day, you know, because nobody is feeling that pure competition from one another.
Right. Could you also throw some light on any recurring challenge or anything particular, like, which kept on coming again and again, you know, in your journey that you faced?
So a lot of times, like, I have done things and I've imagined it like, oh my God, it's going to be like this, like, right, like felt fully ghetto about it, but it just didn't work that ways. Like, people didn't see it that ways, and it didn't get the kind of reciprocation that I had thought of, like, you know. And those are the times that one day you feel demoralized, and I'll be like, oh my God, like, it didn't work like the way I thought. Then you wake up next day and be like, never mind, let's create something new. Let's create a thing. So that is with any business, right? It is going to be a recurring thing. You have to keep offering, you have to keep pushing. and you have to keep making people understand where you're coming from, what you're trying to sell. And that's a challenge. That's with any business, that's with anything you do, that things don't always go the way you do. And in this aspect, because it's an industry which is so labor dependent, it is so human dependent. And to be very honest, people who are working with you, no matter how much you treat them like family, like I've had people who've been working at our office for almost 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, right? So obviously you feel for them like family, like you have cultivated them, their entire family, their kids, their wives, everybody, right? But nobody will work for your brand like you do. Nobody will feel they're doing a job at the end of the day. They're coming, they want their daily wages, and they will go back home. You are answerable to your customer, you're answerable to your audience, right? So I feel one of the biggest challenges in a business that is labor dependent is the labor. This constant struggle with humans. Like, today you feel like a machine can ditch you at any point, but a machine is following same instruction every single day. But when something is handcrafted, when it is done with, and also like obviously a lot of them are this uneducated people, right? So for them, you have to really educate them, cultivate them, try to make them see differently, try to make them feel differently. And obviously, like, they are so skilled, they are so good at what they do, but they don't see their potential. And the day you show them too much of their potential, they're ready to bounce on you, like, because obviously eventually everybody wants to grow. So you have to obviously cultivate them like family, make them feel like family. But it's a challenge because making garments is a chain. There's a master, there's a tailor, there's an embroidery guy, there's a finishing person, there's a packaging person. So there's a whole chain. Even if one person is missing in that, your product is never going to be complete. So obviously it's a constant struggle. Like, we struggle with people leaving us all the time, new people coming in, trying to tell them, people running away with your designs, people running away to other people doing things. They'll go replicate the same thing for another person. So all these things are a constant struggle. But if you're going to let them sit and just keep focusing on this every day, you're never going to grow. You're going to be like, never mind, I'll find another person. Spend time, train them. It's okay. It's a part of life. It is bound to happen. In businesses, this is one of the most common thing. You can love people, but you can't force them to love you back the same way, because eventually they are also looking at being paid. They're also looking at growth. They're also looking at different aspects. But it's such a constant struggle to deliver it on time, to make them work to their potential. Because the thing is, if one piece gets ready in 6 hours, if you're not there in those 6 hours, if you are not sitting there for those 6 hours, that piece will get ready in 12 hours. Because obviously they're going to sit and chat, they're going to get on their phone, they're going to take it easy. So I feel like this is such a constant struggle that you have to be present yourself to motivate them, to make them feel like there's a check on them, So it is handling your workers is a every day challenge. Obviously there are days you can take it easy where your delivery is a few days later, but if you have to give something overnight or in 2 days or 3 days, you have to be present yourself. There is no other option. And anything labor driven will always be more challenging. So this is a constant battle I've had for 7 years. I am so immune to it by now. And I was just like, oh, cool. Okay, this person didn't come today. We'll figure it out. Like, it'll get figured out. I just don't let it play on me, because then I can't focus on anything else. Because then this becomes a bigger deal, right? You start worrying. It starts playing on your mind. So there's a lot at stake.
So we sort of don't have any other questions from our side. So we're going to open the floor for the students to ask you any questions if they want to.
Sure.
I am allowing the students to unmute themselves now. So if you want to ask a question to Akriti, you can go ahead, unmute yourself. If you're too shy to unmute yourself, you can definitely put it down on the chat as well. I will keep an eye on the chat as well. But now you do have you can unmute yourselves. So just ask away whatever you want to ask Akriti. She's already given a lot of information.
I'm chatty like that, guys.
Take a while to process. So take 30 seconds. If you really do have a question, do ask her, because this is this is like a one-time chance that you get to actually learn straight away from her. So definitely make sure you, if you have a question, do ask right now.
Guys, no question is stupid enough. Okay, you can ask me anything.
We have a question.
So Avni is asking, as we are all restricted at our homes, how can we experiment with fashion without actually going out?
Without actually going out. Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so firstly, I these are just my few tips. Okay, so what I do is I spend a lot of time looking at trees and the sky, to be honest. So it's like, in the sense, because it's, the more you look around you, the more you realize, the more inspiration you get. Because actually, inspiration doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't have to be anything massive, right? So try and concentrate on things in your house. Like when you go from one room to another room, notice a lot more, because all this while you've been just running. You get into the house, you get into your room, take a shower, go to bed, wake up in the morning, and kind of just get out with your day. But do you really sit and focus at things in your house? Like, even to be very honest, like even to draw something on paper, it's as simple as taking out your scissors and kind of just outline your scissor on a piece of paper and just start making anything inside it. It's just one pencil, one paper, and a pair of scissors that everybody has in their house. So creatively, like, just take a paper, like just think of any random thing, think of any feeling, take anything from your house, start tracing it down on paper, start drawing it down, then see how you can replicate it in different forms. So see, like, if you can make it in a box, you can make it in a rectangle. You want to make garments, start making garment outlines. See like how people place embroideries. So if you sketch something, how you would place it. Do a lot of research work. There's so much information available online, and it's just not enough. Read a lot, read articles that people say, learn people's perspectives, see how people notice things, see how people learn and how they become aware of their surroundings. So I feel like it is like an endless possibility within four walls, but you just have to keep an open mind. You're so lucky that we are actually in a pandemic, in a point, in a time that is so easy to reach anywhere on a laptop. It's so easy to mentally be anywhere you want to be. So see the level of work people have done in the past. Go back to classics, go back to interviews people have given, see people's journey, learn from them, make notes of like what inspires you from where. It's a great day today outside, like say it's raining, it's windy, just kind of sit, look at the trees, look out of your window. So like say if you stay in apartments and there are buildings and buildings, just sit at your window for a while and observe another person in their their own window. You learn so much about another human being even without speaking to them. You can form a whole different story in your head about them, but it's just what emotion came to you while you were looking out of the window. So I feel like actually this is such a great time to grow inspiration within you without getting inspired or feel pressure from outside. Like it just spend time with yourself, understand yourself, just randomly start drawing on paper. There's nobody judging you, you're not getting marks, nobody's overlooking your work, nobody's forcing you for anything. You're doing it for yourself. What can be more liberating than this? Like, it's freedom at a whole new level. So just start cultivating things on a piece of paper. Like, make sure you note down everything you think. Make sure you do not write it in your phone in notes. Take a pen paper and write it down on a pen paper. Like, the level of satisfaction and the feeling and completion a pen and paper can give you, and the registration in your head that can give you, nothing else will. Writing on a phone, you write it like you're replying to a WhatsApp. It's that brainless. But if you take a paper and pen and write it down, it actually remains. And make a journal of your journey. Like, and when you look back at it, you'll be surprised looking at yourself, that how evolved and or how deeply you thought at that point. Because in this point you don't understand yourself, but when you move further and you look back 10 pages, you're like, oh wow, I actually thought of this. Like, that's amazing. You could really surprise yourself. So don't get overwhelmed, don't feel the pressure. Just create for yourself. Like, even for me, I have spent years looking at the sky and clouds in my life, And I feel like there is so much character in it. There is so much it has to offer you. And these days, anyways, because ever since the pandemic started, the whole world sits with the sky these days. So there's just so much there. Like, try to be more holistic about everything you look at. Try to notice. Try to make notes. Just write down a piece of paper, and I think it's such a great way to understand what would be your USP, what you would like, instead of just blindly like getting there, you know. So watch YouTube videos, take inspiration from other people's life, learn from those mistakes, see what they did wrong, how they did wrong, what they did to mold it. So I think like you have so much to learn just being at home.
So Bhumika wants to know if there were any set of mistakes you wish you could have avoided in your journey.
So as a person, I'm one person who loves her mistakes. So I was just like, in that moment, I was just like, shit, I should have done this differently, or I should have done that differently. It's natural. But when I look back, I'm glad about every single mistake I made, because it turned me of who I am today. Even as a brand, even as a person, like there is nothing like I at that point I like, I wish I'd done this differently. But when I actually look at it later, I said I'm glad I didn't do it. Because say like sometimes what happens is people want to start with the boom, but you can't handle the boom. You don't realize that when you're starting something, there's a lot to account for, and when you start with the boom, you don't give yourself the space for mistake and the pressure of outgrowing it, right? You put too much pressure. I'm a person who believes in starting small, setting small goals. So if I set small goals and I keep achieving them, I know my bigger picture. Obviously, like there's a bigger picture of what I want, where I want to be. And then I set smaller goals of reaching that bigger picture. But it's not like today I'll be like, boom, I'm a big picture, you know? So just like start small, set smaller realistic goals that you can give yourself credit for. So say today I'd be like, okay, I want to do 2 sketches today. And tomorrow I'm like, great, I did 2 sketches that I promised myself I would do yesterday, you know. And then like that, obviously the sketches are not great today, and I like, oh my god, they don't look nice. Then I do again after 3 days, with a new perspective, keep improvising on that and keep playing on that. So obviously they keep improving with time. So there's no mistake I feel like I wish I hadn't done, or I hadn't done that, because it helped me reach where I am. It evolved me. With every mistake I learned what not to do. And sometimes if you do not know what you want to do, but it's important to know what you don't want to do, you know. And sometimes you learn that by making mistakes.
Sure, that is a great insight. I think this is amazing. So
Thank you.
I think we have another question. Rinalini wants to know, when we are in a new market, we are new in the market, how can we gain a customer's trust? Because when you are new, I guess getting customers or gaining that trust is a little bit tricky.
Yeah, it is definitely tricky. Like eventually what runs your business forward is customer trust. It's customer feedback. So it's like initially when make sure you're personally involved with your customers, make sure you're understanding your customer, you're speaking to them, you're interacting with them, because the level of feedback they will give you is what you're selling for, is what you're creating for. Without that, you're nothing. You can keep making things in your head, in your office, but if there's no customer to understand or for you to improvise for that customer, you'll never know where to grow. You'll never know what to do. Be open to criticism. Do not take them personally. Nobody is aiming at you personally as a person. It's just a thought process. Understand it, cultivate it, see if you listen to it with an open heart and an open mind. It works for you, well and good. It doesn't work for you, it's fine. It doesn't matter. But learn to understand it. It is very hard to gain a customer trust when you start a new brand. It is hard to reach out there, but again, being consistent, believing in your product, accepting your mistakes, learning from them is how you grow. And having a customer feedback. So say today if you want to start a brand, but you don't know how a customer will react to it, one of the easiest and simplest way, which I never did in that time, it wasn't an option, but today it's an option for people to do, is make a survey. Run a Google survey with valid questions about your product, about your business, and just circulate it amongst your friends if nobody else. Because those are also a customer's point of view. That is also a person you're going to sell to, right? So run it amongst your family, run it amongst your friends, and see the level of feedback you get. So that's a good place to start. Then just getting, like, just sitting and waiting for a feedback, right? So if you haven't started your business yet and you're planning to start, but you believe in your product and you want to see, so run a survey of questions. Run a thing like, oh, like for example, if today I want to start for healthy eating, I will ask you, how much would be a budget for you to spend on your healthy eating? Would you order a bowl from us every day? Would you choose convenience or would you choose price? Are you a DIY person? How often do you work out? Do you cater to protein meals? Like, I'm just saying, like, so you understand your market, you know, like how many people are really there to invest into it or not invest into it. So I feel in today's time, doing a survey around and just understanding, and like on these Google, you can make like a free survey these days of 10, 12 questions and keep them very basic of your understanding. So it's not overwhelming for another person to answer either, right? So make it very generic, very simple, very basic, and just circulate it around and ask your friends to fill it for you. So I feel like that helps you understand the market even better today.
Great. I hope Mrinalini, she answered your question. We have another question from Mayur. He wants to know, how do you manage your website? Are you looking for Google Ads? Is that your main sort of a marketing, from a very marketing perspective? Is that your main thing that you focus on? Is your website, or digitally you go for social media, or you kind of play with both?
So you have to play with both. It works hand in hand. You have to have the website running. You have to have a social media presence. Like these days on Instagram, they have a shop button right there that takes you to your website.
Yes.
So again, convenience is key in today's time specifically. There is so much option available out there and there is so much content out there. If it is not convenient for your customer will not come back to you. It's very important. Like today, tell me, how easy is it to order from an Amazon? Why is Amazon so focused on a user experience of a website? It is that easy that you take your product, you don't even have to go to add to your cart anymore. You go to buy now, 2 clicks, and it's sold. It's done. It's as simple as that. So I feel like in today's time, convenience has become a very, very, very important factor. It is something you have to concentrate on. Managing a website is not an easy task. You have to have a technical team. It is full tech support. It can crash at you at any point. We've had 1,000 glitches on Flirtatious. I've had 10,000 times the customer has placed an order. I've got the payment but not the order details. So to go back to the customer requesting them, please send me your order details, I'm sorry I didn't receive it, you know. But obviously these are glitches that are not in my hands. It's a tech support, I can't help it, you know. So obviously you will learn. You have to keep upgrading your website from time to time, because with the amount of content, it keeps getting heavier. So you have to keep making it lighter. You have to keep upgrading it. You have to have tech support to run it. And you have to develop it on a very reliable platform. So if you ask my suggestion, one of my top priorities would be Shopify works the best, because you don't have to invest in a in-house tech person, because they also give you tech help on the back end. So you can pay for extra for tech help. They give you different packages. You can think, obviously you're paying them a lump sum every month. You're paying them a percentage on your sales. Obviously those things are there, but evaluate how much it would be for you to get an in-house tech person at the end of the day. You'll also be paying them salary and you probably need them once a month, right? Or get a freelancer if you can, to help you with tech support and pay them per day, you know, whenever you need them. So obviously you have to value and evaluate what works best for you and how it works for you. So eventually you'll have to take a call from there. But yes, it's very, very important for a brand to have a great social media presence and a very, very user-friendly website.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we've asked you a lot of questions today.
It was my pleasure. Don't worry, I love to talk. So for me, it's no problem at all.
Giving us your time and
Pleasure.
I mean, giving us this time and these students all the insights that you could.
I tried my best. I hope it was helpful for them. I hope it gives them some level of understanding and give them some courage that just go in for what you believe and don't over evaluate, because you can never be too sure, you know. Try, it doesn't work, try something else, mold it. You'll understand with time what works, like, and just keep going with it. If you believe in it, just keep going with it. That's it.
That was almost my last question. If you have some last words for the students, I think you've already said your last words before me even asking that question. But thank you so much for.
Pleasure. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next Career Cafe session. I hope you had fun too.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.